Welcome to Stories with Steve, a podcast on the Central Buna Podcast Network. Every Thursday in 5 minutes or less, we'll lift you up with stories of how God works behind the scenes in our lives. Romans 8:28 tells us that God works all things together for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. Now with an encouraging story, here's Steve.
You know, sometimes God will send you somewhere that you don't want to go in order to reach someone that needs to be reached, right? So, flashback a few years ago, God sent me to prison. No, I wasn't sentenced to prison, but I was sent to prison. I was kind of between jobs and didn't know what I was going to do, and I went to live with my sister and her husband up around Huntsville area, and there's not a lot of jobs in that area. I worked overnight stocking groceries, but that wasn't too much, and I was really without a car right then. I was trying to figure out a way to save money, and so they're always hiring correctional officers there, and after working there, I know why. They were offering bonuses, like about $1,500 signing bonus. So I thought, well, it'd be a way for me to work and save money. I can do it for a year maybe in my life. And so I was a little bit apprehensive, but I decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and sign up. So you go through a mini training, like about 6-week training, sort of like a mini boot camp. So some of it's kind of tough because they're trying to mentally prepare you, and you hear all these horror stories about what it's like in the prisons, and so they just want people to be prepared. You got people right out of high school, and then you have older people working there, and so finished the training and all that, went into the prison, and when I first walked in there, I was just so scared because, number one, you're so outnumbered in there. The guys at the Alamo had better odds, but you're walking in there, and I thought, well, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll work overnight. It won't be bad. Everybody will be asleep then. Yeah, right. 3 o'clock in the morning, there's still activity going on, and it's very, very hot in those places. Like in the summer, you just sweat so bad because there's no AC. I think maybe they've recently changed that, but just working in there, you're surrounded by some of the toughest people you can imagine. And honestly, I didn't have a lot of trouble with any of the inmates or the offenders in there while I was there. I did have opportunity to minister to people. You know, it's a little bit different than when you do like prison ministry because you go in and then you leave. But when you work there, you're kind of a part of it. But the one thing I did see there that really, I feel like the reason God sent me there was to maybe to have an inner toughness in my life that I needed to develop. And so the way you carry yourself means a whole lot. And on one of the cell blocks, there's maybe like 120, 130 guys on a cell block. So you're really outnumbered in there. And so they kind of watch you. They watch you like a hawk. They see the kind of person you are. And some people become very corrupted themselves while they're in there, if you will. Some of the officers, I saw people kind of turn to the dark side of the force. I mean, obviously you can imagine the worst kind of language, the worst kind of environment you ever have. But the way you carry yourself, and guys know a difference. They can see a difference in you, that there's something different. I remember when I was reading, I actually lived in a dorm there, not outside the prison, outside the fence, but in order to save money, I did that. And this guy saw me reading a Christian book. He goes, hey, man, it's hard to be a Christian in here. So, yeah, he was right. But the consistency, and, you know, is the main thing, how people see you live your life. But I remember one particular night, and I was just really, really tired and walking up and down the stairs and checking what we call the count, where that's one of the most stressful times in prison because you're counting, making sure you haven't lost anybody. And you look at their names, and they have their names, their first, middle, and last name. And so I'm climbing up, and I'm looking at this cell, and I'm seeing this guy, his name, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, I wonder if it's the same guy that I remember from years ago. So flashback again, when I was in college, I used to work at a juvenile, kind of a place for juvenile youth that had been in trouble with the law. And so I remember this one kid, skinny redheaded kid that always was in trouble, always running away. And I always wondered what happened to that guy. And so I'm looking at this guy's name, but now his face, it didn't add up because the guy's kind of big and buff now and had his head shaved. And so I asked him, I said, hey, were you from around Dallas? He goes, yeah, I was in Dallas. I go, you wouldn't have to be at Dallas County Youth Village where? He goes, yeah. He goes, hey, you don't remember me, do you? And he goes, and I wanted to say, hey, apparently you didn't learn anything. But he remembered me, and I did find out that he gave his life to the Lord. And I thought, now that is so cool that I would run into him in a prison. You know, there's over 100 prisons in Texas, and there's about 130,000 prisoners. incarcerated. What are the odds that I happen to be working where that guy was? And I thought, how that's so cool how God works out the circumstances in our life. And I thought about, one of the reasons I wanted to do a podcast is, you look back in your life and you see these events in your life that at the time, God knows the future and he sees where you're going to be and he sees how to connect all the dots. So I just think it's cool how he leads you. So, and also, like I said, God developed some characteristics in my life, put me there for a reason, maybe to develop some inner toughness and things. But anyway, only lasted about 9 months in there, but I was able to meet some goals. But that's just so cool how God works out those situations in our life every single day. I wonder if you got a story like that. I'd love to hear it. Remember, you got a story to tell.